It's time for the Sports Blitz, the only live-streamed local sports show in Arkansas, with all the latest on the sports stories that matter to you.
Any NBA fan, any basketball fan, over the past if you'd asked any NBA fan 2 years ago who was going to be the number one pick in last night's NBA draft, they'd tell you it was Andrew Wiggins, without a doubt. And last night, Andrew Wiggins, first pick in the NBA draft to the Cleveland Cavaliers, sort of a round.
Went around and back.
Round and back to Andrew Wiggins, as it was Parker, it was Embiid. Turns out it's Wiggins.
Cody Clark, and then he got back to Wiggins.
Mardrakus Wade and Ricky Scott. And,
they wanted Kiko, but he was already playing professional.
Yes, he already signed his pro contract in Israel, so wasn't it? It was Israel, right?
Lebanon,
League, Lebanon, yeah, same thing. Whatever. It's foreign over there somewhere. Welcome into the Sports Blitz on a Friday. Got a lot of NBA talk, NBA draft, also World Cup. The U.S. advances to the round of 16. It's the only time we celebrate losses is when it turns out to be a good thing, I guess. Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton, Matty Lassiter in the Cogswell Motors studios. And we asked today's CrossFit Russellville poll question, Weldon, what stood out yesterday to you? What were your takeaways from yesterday's big sporting events? It was a big day in sports. For those of you that care, Wimbledon. For those of you that care, Tiger Woods back on the golf course, the World Cup, the NBA draft, lots of stuff to grab a hold of in late June for there to be that much to talk about. It's a pretty good deal. And then last night, one of the most loaded drafts in the NBA in a long time, one that teams tanked for, and it appears some more teams are still tanking. But we'll give you our takeaways, the winners and losers from the draft, best and worst picks. But it went pretty well how I expected. I told you guys on Wednesday that Joel Embiid, despite his injury concerns and despite the things that, Weldon said he was dead to him, and
he's still dead.
There were a lot of people who felt that way. I knew he wasn't getting past 4. I told somebody last night. He said, "Where do you think Embiid's going to be drafted?" And I said, "I'd be hard pressed if I were Philadelphia not to draft him at 3. Ain't no way he's going past 4, because there wasn't anybody else after the top 3 who have franchise-changing capabilities in my eyes. Now, I'm sure some of these guys will be really good. Dwayne Wade was pretty good back in the day. I guess he was drafted number 4. Chris Bosh was drafted number 5. Or maybe it was the other way around. Bosh was 4 and Wade was 5, and those two are both really, really good. But that was a once-in-a-lifetime type draft. And last night I saw the top 3 as sort of head and shoulders above everybody else in potential. And then you go from there. There were some picks I loved, some picks I hated. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Embiid, the talent is undeniable. There's no question. It just really comes down to, do you believe in his medical or not? And the teams, if obviously Philadelphia believed in his medical, they took him. I think you would find a lot of teams that just didn't believe in his medical and they wouldn't have taken him. So we'll see how it goes. But I'll say this, though, about Philadelphia. This team is going to be unstoppable in 2018.
Seriously.
Because right now, and Bill Simmons made a good point. Like, Embiid's probably not going to play this year. And so pretty much, they'll have Noel. They'll be a little bit better, but they're going to be terrible. They're going to be back in the lottery again. So now you're looking at, Joel Embiid with Nerlens Noel, if healthy, and that's
Michael Carter-Williams.
Yeah, with Michael Carter-Williams. I mean, and that's another thing about it is you're really playing with some fire. I mean, you got 2 taller players coming off major injuries. If you navigate them both, I say hats off to you, because they knew Nerlens Noel had an ACL issue, and then Embiid, he's coming off his injury. Although I believe more in Noel because it was more of a freak thing. He wasn't injury prone. He tore his knee. Blake Griffin hurt his knee too. It wasn't a history. It was just a freak thing. Embiid, I just think he's brittle. But you get that team together, they can be something pretty bad coming up in the next few years, but it's going to take some time for it to materialize. But I like what a few teams did, and I'll save my draft awards and my draft stupidity for a little bit later today.
Philadelphia is going to have the youngest team in the history of ever. I mean, one of their older dudes. I mean, Jason Richardson's on the team, and he's $1 million, but he's the only guy over 30. He's 33. The rest of their team is 26 or below. And James Anderson is a veteran on this team. You remember Junction City's James Anderson went to Oklahoma State and was just one of the best players I've ever seen play live. Played in the state championship game and he dropped 48. The team they were playing, I don't even remember who it was. That's how much they mattered. He dropped 48. The team they were playing had 47. He was unbelievable at Oklahoma State as well. He's there at Philadelphia. They've got Michael Carter-Williams, 22 years old. Joel Embiid, 20. Jeremy Grant, 20. KJ McDaniels, 21. They drafted Nerlens Noel. He's 20. B.J. Mullins is 25. He's one of their older players. Dario Saric, who's going to stay in Europe for 2 more years, signed another contract. They're to stay in Europe. 20 years old. He'll be 22 by the time he comes over. They got Adonis Thomas, who's 21. I think he's really good. Jarvis Bernardo is 26. He is the oldest player on their team, aside from Thaddeus Young, who's also 26. Like you said, Philadelphia is going to be loaded here in a couple of years. But they're trying their best to suck on purpose. It's just like, let's be as bad as we possibly can so that we can load up and be better later on. So,
I think it's a good idea. I mean, because if you
better not be in the middle.
Well, that's the thing, though. If you keep drafting really good hurt players, they're really good and they're not going to play immediately. So you just keep getting really good picks. And so pretty soon, if and when they do get healthy, you can throw them all. I tell you one thing that was funny last night was, obviously Philadelphia drafted Elfrid Payton, and you had to know they were going to trade him. But the look on Michael Carter-Williams' face was priceless.
He was like, "What?
He had that.
You drafted a point guard? I'm the rookie of the year. What?"
I mean, first of all, you're going to have 2 point guards that couldn't shoot. I mean, defensively, you were going to be lights out with Noel and Embiid up front and those two. But they, of course, traded the pick to Orlando, which made a lot more sense. And then they get some help coming back. So. With Saric, they're gonna stash him like you said, and they'll suck next year and they'll get a good player.
One thing I don't like about the NBA, and it's different than any league in the world, is that so many of these teams, the draft is nothing more than a way for them to finagle the salary cap. They don't care about getting better. They want to stash players over in Europe so that they don't have to pay them. Oh, well, we'll just have you. If you get good over there, we'll just bring you over. And until then, we'll just pay the players that we have. We'll just make sure that we take care of our salary cap. And they don't improve through the draft. They improve through free agency or through paying the players that they've got. And in the NFL, that's suicide. You have to get better through the draft. In Major League Baseball, farm systems. I mean, I know you've got the Yankees and teams like that, but those two teams, both really, Yankees, Red Sox, both got better through the farm system. The Cardinals, they survived through the farm system. And, the NBA, it's just kind of a shame that there's so many people who are tanking and or farming out players and just basically sending people off so that they don't have to pay them.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was actually planning on talking about that. That's a really good point because the NBA has changed. The NBA used to be, the salary cap was always important, but it always stopped short when it started to affect the competitiveness on the floor. Yep. So it's like, okay, we got to do cap-friendly stuff, but we're not going to sacrifice what's going on the floor. We're at a time where, and I think it's free agency because, there's always been free agents. There's always been top 10-ish players becoming free agents, top 20. But there used to not be a time where like the best players, second, third, whatever players were free agents. And so that's creating such a frenzy to where there was a time where you would never trade a productive center like a Sheik for essentially nothing. Yeah. I mean, you're giving away players that produce. Just say, here, we don't want to pay you. Somebody please take them. But I think that's a product of free agency because obviously if you want a LeBron, if you want a Carmelo, whatever the case may be, you got to be able to clear the space for them, So if you think you got a chance to do it, you got to make these decisions. You're right about the draft picks. They're intentionally drafting people that can't play. What was that dude that the Raptors drafted? Fran Fraschilla said.
Oh, we're going to talk about him.
He's 2 years away from being 2 years away.
And you drafted him.
Yeah, and they drafted him.
Number 20. That's the thing. Like, they could have got this dude in the second round. They could have got that dude today. But they draft him number 1.
Wait a minute.
Their first pick, number 20. What?
He's the Brazilian Kevin Durant.
Yeah, it's funny. He said that, and in the same breath, he said, but he doesn't know how to play the game.
Yeah.
Oh, so he's Kevin Durant, and apparently Brazil, they still think you play basketball with your feet.
I was like, if I'm Kevin Durant, if I'm watching that, I'm saying, wait a minute now.
Time out. What you trying to say? Yeah. Apparently he's tall and skinny. That's all you need to know about him, and eventually he may be able to play ball in 4 years.
Can we, Leo, at some point talk about, and somebody tweeted out, these lazy comparisons? I'm sorry, but everybody white is not Larry Bird or Steve Nash. Like if
you're right.
If you're 6 feet tall, oh, Steve Nash. If you're 6'8" and shoot threes, oh, Larry Bird. I heard Nick Stauskas is Jimmer. Oh, yeah. I mean, come on, people. Let's not be lazy with these comparisons.
Some of them are lazy, and some of them, I saw some yesterday. Garrett Hill was telling me about each player in the first round that was projected in this mock draft. They had a ceiling and a floor for who this player was, and some of those were just kind of funny. It was just like, really, you think he's going to be that guy? You think he can possibly be that good? Some of the floors were higher than the ceilings I thought they should have. So we'll see how these players turn out. But yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. So looking at the draft, none of us are surprised that Wiggins went number 1. I was talking with a friend last night, and he said that obviously he's a Duke fan, but he loves Jabari Parker. He said he was probably, and I agree, the most NBA ready player, the most polished scorer, and could have helped immediately in Cleveland. But Cleveland's trying to do two things. One, they want to get better. They want to get LeBron James back. And if you draft Jabari Parker, you just drafted a LeBron James position, like somebody for that same position, and then LeBron has to play the 4 or has to play the 2, and he's just not that way.
Yeah.
He needs to be in the 3. And, Andrew Wiggins is a guy who can help take pressure off him defensively if they were to be able to get him. So it seemed to me like the safer pick, although Parker is ready right now. Wiggins has got a higher ceiling, in my opinion. He's got more capability to be a superstar at some point. Garrett made the point that Jabari Parker, his ceiling is like a Melo, which
I agree.
That'd be really, really good. But what's Andrew Wiggins' ceiling? I mean, to me, if they were to be able to get him and him turn out to be as good as he could possibly be, they'd be really, really good. And if it helps them get LeBron James back, that's it. I mean, it's worth it, no matter who you have to draft.
Well, two things. First of all, as players, I think if you're really going to project the upside of them, I would say compare Carmelo Anthony and Paul George. I really think that's essentially what you're picking between the two players. They're both really good. Some people would take George. Some people would take Carmelo. I think that's kind of where they're at. But the problem that I have, though, with this whole Cleveland situation, I've said this before. And again, this is not my opinion on the players. It's not my opinion on the situation. This is just me seeing how it was laid out. Chad Ford, ESPN draft guru insider, as late as yesterday morning was saying, well, personally, I would take Andrew Wiggins, but I'm getting the feeling that Cleveland's on Parker. I'm getting the feeling they like Parker. And then the LeBron James stuff came into it. And my problem is, again, this is not what I would do, but this is just my issue with what they're doing. If they took Andrew Wiggins for the sole purpose of getting LeBron James, I don't think that was a good idea because, again, I don't think they're going to get LeBron James. And if you're drafting a guy just to get him, I just don't think that makes sense. Now, I'm not saying Andrew Wiggins is a bad player, and if they end up having Wiggins and no LeBron, they'll still be okay. But if Parker was my guy and I loved him, and I didn't take him just because of the remote possibility of getting LeBron, I don't think that was a good decision.
No, I agree. If it were even, though, and if in your mind you thought they're both even, but one could possibly land me LeBron and the other one wouldn't, and also, I mean, you can see both. I can see both sides. Like you said, I can see them wanting to take Wiggins because, okay, it's close enough, but Wiggins has a higher ceiling, and he could possibly land us LeBron.
Because I would take Wiggins. Me personally, I would have just taken Wiggins and been happy with it. But I don't like what tells me that they're kind of, I don't want to say cowards, but just they're kind of weak is that I think Parker was their guy in their heart of hearts, and they didn't take him.
They didn't have the guts to take
him.
That's
my issue.
You may be right. I do like both of them. I like the first two picks. Philadelphia takes a little bit of a reach there for Joel Embiid, but it was
4.
because
what about that?
That's the dumbest pick in the history of basketball. We got a guy who can't do anything but dunk. And people called him a poor man's Blake Griffin. Somebody else called him a homeless man's Blake Griffin. Couldn't do anything but dunk and possibly block shots. I did hear that he in conference play, he lowered teams, the players that he was playing against, their field goal percentage to like 30%. But he's a jackrabbit. I mean, he just jumps up and blocks shots and dunks. He doesn't have a brain in his head for basketball yet. So I'm not a big Aaron Gordon fan, and the Magic got him at number 4. I want to look later on at the NBA draft about the players that I didn't care for too much. He's absolutely one of them. I was just kind of shocked at what I saw from, I was following it on Twitter. I won't tell you where I was because it makes me sick to think about the fact that I was at Hobby Lobby with my wife instead of watching the NBA draft.
Aww.
But yeah, Aaron Gordon drafted number 4, and then the Jazz get Exum when they just drafted Trey Burke last year. Like, what? Why?
But I think they can play together.
Yeah, I mean, they
6'6".
probably can, but why? I mean,
Okay. They play too.
Boston gets Marcus Smart, and they've got Rondo. I guess they want to get rid of one of them. Probably Rondo. Everybody in the world knew Julius Randle was going 7 to the Lakers. Stauskas to Sacramento instead of McDermott. A lot of folks thought it was McDermott ahead of Nick Stauskas. I like Stauskas, so I don't have too much of a problem with that. Charlotte getting Vonleh. I don't know about that. There are some picks that I want to get to here in just a little bit. We'll give you our players we loved, players we hated, drafts we liked, drafts we didn't like so much, and then we'll get to the World Cup as soon as we get back from this break.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. You know, we've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
here's what you missed.
Updated news.
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
Developing stories.
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
And weather and traffic on the 4s.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on. KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
Drafts we loved, drafts we hated. Welcome back into the Sports Blitz on a Friday. Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton, Matty Lassiter in the Cogswell Motors Studios. Told you before the break about how much I disliked Aaron Gordon. Even if he does turn into Blake Griffin, I don't like him.
You don't like Blake Griffin?
I don't like Blake Griffin.
Yeah, so
I'll be honest with you. I mean, I heard somebody yesterday, I'm trying to think of who it was, say that it was Colin Cowherd. And he and I have a love-hate relationship with one another. He loves me and I hate him. Sometimes I love what he has to say, and sometimes I absolutely think he's a million miles off. And he said yesterday that Blake Griffin, that LeBron won't go to the Clippers because it's Blake Griffin's town and he can't make it his own. I'm pretty sure LeBron James could go to the moon, and that's his town. At that point, he owns it. So that just blows my mind that he would say that about Blake Griffin. But I didn't like the Orlando pick of Aaron Gordon at number 4. I didn't like the Raptors pick at number 20 of a guy, Bruno Caboclo, who is 2 years away from being 2 years away, says Fran Fraschilla. And then the Clippers take in C.J. Wilcox at 28, who they've got a glut of shooting guards anyway, and here he is coming in to a team full of guys just like him. I'm not saying he won't be good, but that's just it's kind of a stupid pick in my opinion. But there were some picks that kind of blew our minds, and some picks that we were kind of like, okay, later on in this first round, you got some guys. You got some I liked Chicago being able to trade and get McDermott.
Yes.
That's a guy that fits a need for them. Take some scoring load off a guy like Derrick Rose, who, like we've joked about before, you have to assume the first game he's going to go down with a tear of his knee, somewhere. Adrian Payne going 15 to Atlanta. Doesn't he seem like a guy who will fit in there with that squad?
Yeah, I mean, they've got that international inside-out flavor. He can shoot the jump shot. When I watch Adrian Payne, Mark, he's just somebody, like, sometimes you see a player on the college floor, he just looks like he's an NBA player. And I watch Adrian Payne, I feel like, this dude's an NBA player. I mean, he's big, he's strong, can shoot the basketball, he's going to board. That can really help the Atlanta Hawks.
And then the big one, we heard in the NBA draft, in the NCAA tournament, when Shabazz Napier is going crazy and LeBron James says you're crazy if you draft another point guard before Shabazz Napier, LeBron James becomes a free agent when he opts out of his deal. The talk this week, this is how powerful LeBron James is in the NBA. He talks about wanting Napier. It comes back around and everybody hears about it. Now Miami wants to trade their 26th pick to get up and get Shabazz Napier. They make that trade and they get Shabazz Napier just because LeBron James said you should get Shabazz Napier. I like that pick because regardless of what Shabazz Napier does, he's going to be better than Mario Chalmers. He's going to be better than Norris Cole. He's going to fit. They're going to have to get rid of Mario Chalmers. Norris Cole's under contract. That's $4 million off the books for Chalmers, and Shabazz Napier coming in at a much cheaper salary, and he's going to be a better player. I think that's a win for Miami. They could possibly get LeBron back.
I think so. I think when you look at Shabazz Napier, he's a guy who, first of all, he can play some defense. And while his size is a little bit of an issue, he's such a bulldog and he's so quick. I think defensively he can do the job. Offensively, I've said many times I don't think they've had to have a point guard that can run it, but it doesn't hurt if he can. And Shabazz can certainly do that, take some of the ball handling off LeBron, especially since it's questionable whether or not Dwayne Wade can alleviate some ball handling from LeBron James. So, look, Shabazz was arguably the best point guard in this draft, and especially from a production standpoint, he was. You look at the guys who went ahead of Marcus Smart, he's a better shooter than Marcus Smart. You look at an Elfrid Payton, he's just more developed and more well-rounded than Elfrid Payton, although Payton's upside is off the chart. Tyler Ennis, same thing, just, he's pretty much a better version of Ennis as far as I'm concerned. So, Shabazz for the Miami Heat, I think will be a good fit with LeBron. He's got an attitude, he's going to work hard, he's competitive, so I think he'll be a good fit for Miami.
I saw also at number 26, which is the pick that Miami traded, Miami drafted P.J. Hairston for Charlotte, who drafted Shabazz Napier. So I liked P.J. Hairston to Charlotte, liked what Charlotte did in the draft. Whose drafts did you love? Whose drafts did you hate?
The drafts that I love. Well, I told you I like what the Lakers were able to do because, first of all, if I had anything to say in the top 6, Julius Randle wouldn't have been there at 7. But the fact that he was, I said they should forget about 5 minutes. They need to run up there right now and make that pick because they need a guy. They don't need a guy who's just upside, just potential, or some foreigner or somebody never. They need somebody day one that can help reclaim some L.A. real estate right now because the Clippers are running that town. Julius Randle is that guy. And then to get Jordan Clarkson, a guy who could have been a first-round pick. This tells you about this draft. He had late first-round grades by some people. You get him in the middle of the second round, a big 6'5", 6'6" point guard. I mean, I think that's a home run for them. You mentioned Doug McDermott going to the Bulls. Look, if you're the Bulls, you don't have time to mess around.
Nope.
You got a clear cap space. You got Noah. You got Rose. You're going to bring a rookie in there. He's going to have to be able to do something. And Doug McDermott's going to do something from day one. So I like that. And I'm actually going to give credit to a team that didn't have a first-round pick. I like we know the Knicks made that trade with Dallas. They got rid of Tyson Chandler, Raymond Felton, brought back Calderon, and some other pieces. But Cleanthony Early, dude is a flat-out ball player. He's 6'8". He can shoot. He's athletic. He can play defense. To get him in the second round, I thought that was nice. Boston, again, not a huge Smart fan, but I do think he'll be a starting point guard. If you're going to move Rondo, obviously he's not a bad choice to have there. Plus James Young, extremely talented. You get him with your other first-round pick. And then the 76ers, we've talked about what they did up top. I like them getting KJ McDaniels in the second round. Here's a guy, we saw him in Fayetteville against Arkansas this past year. Freakish athlete, get him in the second round. Thought that was really nice for them. Those are the teams that I loved.
Speaking of really nice, I've told you what I hated, and the biggest thing that I loved from this draft was what Adam Silver and the NBA did to honor Isaiah Austin, a guy who was going to be drafted, an NBA prospect out of Baylor. You remember his story. He was out a lot of the year. He had an injury early on in his life where he was poked in the eye. He can't see out of his right eye, but he made the necessary adjustments in his life, and he became a great basketball player, was ready to be drafted. Through the workouts and all the pre-draft stuff, they found that he had a genetic disorder that was going to disallow him from being an NBA player. It ended his career effectively just right then. Adam Silver invites him to the draft as a guest of the NBA, tells his story a little bit real quickly, and then says, with the next pick in the NBA draft, the NBA selects Isaiah Austin, Baylor University. What an incredible, self-aware. I heard that said of Adam Silver. What a great moment for the NBA, for him and for Austin.
It is really cool because Isaiah Austin put the same work in as Wiggins and Parker and Embiid and all these other guys. He worked just as hard. He wasn't going to be a top pick, but he was going to hear his name called. And it's not like this happened, way after this, right before the season was over, right after. I mean, this is something that just happened. So he had already put in the pre-draft work. He had already, really made the entire journey. And the timing of it was he just had it ripped away at the very last minute, right before you hear your name called. And so that's disheartening. And so to be able to hear your name called, to be able to go up on stage, put on a cap, shake the commissioner's hand, I think it's special. And, Isaiah Austin, we've already talked about, he's got a good head on his shoulders. He will be a part of Baylor in some capacity. It was just a really, really good thing by the NBA to be considerate and think about, what that young man's going through. I mean, because they could have easily said, you know what, this is a league. We like the players that can play. The ones that can't, go sell insurance. But, they didn't do that. They gave him a chance to do that, and I thought it was really cool.
It was definitely really cool. A couple other news items here out of the NBA. Some trades. You saw Jose Calderon and who was the other player? I know that they were traded for Tyson Chandler and Raymond Felton from Dallas to New York. So Tyson Chandler going back to Dallas, New York, doing some things, as Phil Jackson said, to help with chemistry. That's got to be a slap in the face to Tyson Chandler and Raymond Felton that, hey, we need help with our chemistry. We're getting rid of these two guys.
Oh, there's no cool. Tyson Chandler, even though Mike Woodson is no longer the coach, it was pretty much understood that Tyson Chandler and Mike Woodson, they didn't really gel too well. And then, Tyson Chandler just, the overall commitment on the defensive end, obviously with Carmelo. I mean, he just
lots
wasn't
of finger pointing.
Yeah, he just wasn't feeling that vibe. Raymond Felton, I don't know what happened to him.
I'm done with him, man.
Well, here's a guy who really, the beginning of the 2010-2011 season was like the peak of his career. He had just signed with the Knicks. He and Amari were kind of doing their pick and roll thing, kind of like a Steve Nash for him. He was balling. Then all of a sudden, he goes to Denver in the Melo trade. Then the lockout happens. He gains like 15 pounds in the offseason. He goes to Portland after signs a contract. He's horrible. Ends up back on the Knicks and really wasn't much better. Really, ever since he got traded in the Carmelo deal, he just has not been the same. I don't know what his problem is.
No. And then looking at a couple other things, LaMarcus Aldridge has been offered a max deal by the Portland Trail Blazers and the Memphis Grizzlies and Zach Randolph agreed to a 2-year, $20 million deal, about $10 million a year. I think the first year, I think they said he made 16, so that's a pretty good deal for him. Brings me to the final point that I want to make about the NBA, Weldon, and you and I have talked about this before, but the Miami Heat, they know that they just got worked over by the San Antonio Spurs. They know that the Spurs are coming back as is, so the best shot they have is to stay together. I mean, they're not going to go somewhere else in year one and beat that Spurs team. They're especially not going to go to the West and beat that Spurs team.
Right.
They'd have to stay in the East. That limits their potential places to just a small number of teams that they could go to. They met, I guess it was Wednesday afternoon, the Big Three, and I just feel like there's no way around these three guys taking less money and playing together. I know I've heard people talk about how they have every right to make that money, and they do. They have every right to make a max deal. They're worth it, but it comes down to whether or not you want to win or whether you want to make that money. You're going to make good money. $10 million is not, I mean, Latrell Sprewell, I got a family to feed. You're not going to go hungry making $10 million a year. Yes, you can make $20 million a year, but at this stage in your career, 11, 12 years in, 2 big contracts in, do you want to make huge astronomical money and be Kobe Bryant? Did you realize that Kobe Bryant made more money? I don't know if you saw me tweet this. Bill Simmons said it. Kobe Bryant made more money last year than Tony Parker, Tim Duncan, and Manu Ginobili combined. The Big Three from San Antonio, Kobe made more money than them. I hope you're enjoying that money, Kobe. I hope you're drowning in it. $30 million, and he played like what?
Six
games,
something like that.
Last year. So I mean, even if he played the whole year, he's taking up a third of the salary, or half the salary cap himself. Miami can't do that.
Well, and that's the problem. To the Kobe point, real quick, that's the problem. I mean, the Kobe issue is not about overall Laker or bus enterprise finances. From that standpoint, they're $50 million over 2 years. They're gonna get a return on that with restaurants and jersey sales. But
why can't you just give him money outside of the salary cap? Like, let him be a
that's
sponsor.
illegal.
Well, no, I mean, like, no, I'm not just saying here we're gonna give you this much in your contract, but no, I mean, like, don't they own other businesses or know people that can have him endorse stuff?
That's come up before in the league. They get real nosy about that. They know what you own, and they know if you. But the thing with Kobe is, from a business standpoint, they're gonna get the return, like I said, with jerseys and filling the house. But the salary cap doesn't feel sorry for you in that regard, So whether or not you have the money to pay him a lot more, you're going to get a return on your investment. The cap is the cap, and you're still taking half of it. So, yeah, if they could do something like that to treat him, reward him outside of it, but they're not. He's greedy. The Spurs, though.
He's greedy.
The Spurs, Tom Penn, he put the salaries up last night. Tim Duncan, $10 million. Ginobili, $7 million. Tony Parker, $12 million. So, I mean, clearly Miami is going to have to go down that route, and I think they will. I think you're right. I want to see those numbers. I do think they'll re-sign, but I want to see, for how much. Is Dwayne Wade, for instance, is he going to go down to 10?
He needs to. 10 is about where he needs to be.
Or is he going to say, I'll help out. I'll help out off 20, but I ain't gonna come down below like 13 or 14. Is he gonna kind of halfway do it? Like Chris Bosh. Are they gonna full? Because I think fully investing is when you go down to like 10. That's fully jumping into it. Or you're gonna be
if Tim Duncan's not too good to do it, there is nobody who shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, they're probably all gonna go to about 15. It's probably what they're gonna do, and then leave the team another 15. But at the end of the day, man, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not enough because you're going to have Shabazz Napier, but you're going to have nobody else. I mean, Ray Allen may opt back in and take very little. You've still got Beasley and Oden at very, very little contracts. They sign them to 2-year deals at like the veteran minimum.
Yeah.
But they're going to need to go get somebody. I know Kyle Lowry's probably off the table now that you drafted Shabazz Napier, but a guy like Trevor Ariza or somebody like that who can stretch the floor a little bit for him, help him out, help him on defense, keep LeBron James off the best player on the other team at some point. Well, I mean, I don't mind Rashard Lewis. I wouldn't mind him to stay, but he kind of disappeared in the NBA Finals when there was a team who could figure out, hey, don't leave that guy standing over there wide open, and then we'll be able to beat him. But I'm like I said, Miami is going to have to. These guys are going to have to take a whole. It's easy for me to say, it really is, but these guys are going to have to give the hometown discount. And I know Dwayne Wade is Miami Heat. He is the Miami Heat.
Right.
But he can either be the Miami Heat and stay there, or he can come back and retire with a one-day contract years from now.
That's a good point. And like one thing I think we have to pay attention to is, I don't want to say there's a rift with Mickey Harrison, but there's a little bit of tension. I know from Dwayne Wade's side of it to Mickey Harrison, and maybe even LeBron's case, because there's a little bit of mistrust as far as, okay, we give this money back. Are you going to put it back in the team? Like, the players aren't fully convinced of that. And I think part of it was because of the Joel Anthony deal, which I won't really hold that against the organization. But basically, they gave Joel Anthony away and a draft pick just to save money. And so I know during the season, the guys, that kind of rubbed those guys the wrong way.
But that's, to me, I don't hate that deal because Joel Anthony wasn't going to help them anyway.
No.
And they needed the help for they thought they were set this year. They needed the help for later on. I don't have any issue with that. But they do have to use whatever money. That goes without saying to help the team going forward from right now.
Right, and I agree with you on that. I think they looked at, though, just the principle of it. Like, okay, you're doing this. If we give less money, you are going to put it back, or are you going to go buy another Carnival cruise ship, Mickey? I mean, which are you going to do? I believe he would put it back on the team, but just that hint of questioning is something to kind of keep your eye on.
My big question with the big three is, where else are you going to go? What else are you going to do? I mean, there are teams who want to pair LeBron James with Carmelo Anthony, and I'm sure he's going to enjoy hearing all those different pitches from all these different people. But at the end of the day, man, you're going to have no better shot to win a championship if you're LeBron James than in Miami. That's why I think he stays. Somebody said the other day that it was 80-20. I believe it's more like 60-40 Miami or the field. Now, because the field's pretty broad, pretty wide. You got Houston, who's making moves. They got rid of Asik. You got the Clippers, who are trying to make moves. The Warriors trying to make moves. You got all these teams. I wouldn't go to the West. No way I'd go to the West. I'd stay in the East. Chicago is another place that people are talking about. But if I'm LeBron James, it's hard for me not to just stay in Miami.
Well, I agree with you on the West part. That's what I brought up the other day. I just wonder, as attractive as Houston may be, you not only have the Spurs, but you have Spurs and Thunder and Clippers, and I mean, they beat Portland, but that's still another nuisance. You got an 8 seed Dallas type teams hanging out there. I think it'll be in the East, and then when you look in the East, other than Miami, I mean, whether you think Cleveland is a viable option, some do, some don't. I don't think it's going to happen. And then you look at Chicago. They have to amnesty Carlos Boozer, and from what I understand, that's not the DNA of that organization, because when you amnesty somebody, it doesn't count against your books, but you still got to pay them. It's still going to come out of your pocket to pay them. It just doesn't count against your books. So I don't know if I see Chicago amnestying $16 million.
Well, they're going to have to do something if they want to compete, because Carlos Boozer's not going to help them win a championship at that salary, and it's just definitely not worth it. And that's one of those stupid things. Here, take our money.
Yeah.
They screwed up in a big, big way. All right, anything else NBA related you want to hit? Because in the next few weeks we're going to have some big news, but we don't want to run it into the ground. Let's take our final break, Maddie, and then we'll come back and we'll look at the World Cup. The U.S., despite a loss to Germany, 1-0, makes their way to the round of 16. They got a tough test in Belgium. I watched Belgium play a little bit yesterday. I'm getting to my bachelor's. I'm working on my bachelor's in soccerology, so we'll talk about the U.S. making it through group play, the group of death, and into the round of 16 right after this.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. We've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
America was full of soccer fans yesterday as the U.S. faced Germany in what was a de facto elimination game, as at the same time Portugal was playing Ghana across the country there in Brazil in the World Cup, and the U.S. had to try to win or draw or lose close enough that if Portugal won by not too many, or Ghana, it's just a whole bunch of different scenarios, so that the U.S. could make it through the group of death, make it in the top two. Germany wins 1-0, and across the meanwhile in Hazard County, the Portugal team was ahead 1-0 on an own goal by Ghana, and then comes back and Ghana ties it, and then everything got real tight there for a little bit, as everybody's thinking, man, if Ghana scores again, the U.S. has to tie. Which means they would have to get a goal when Germany was already up 1-0. And then Ronaldo scores a goal to make it 2-1 Portugal, took most of the pressure off the U.S. As time runs out, they're sort of hanging their heads, and then they look up and they see, oh, we're advancing because Portugal won. Sort of a bittersweet moment, a little different for most of us who, when we watch sports, we root for the winner, and if we don't win, we're not happy. Right. Well, the U.S. was able to celebrate despite a loss.
This is the different dynamic that soccer brings to the table, because you can there's times where, like Olympic basketball, they have pool play, group play too, and there's a scenario in that too where you could lose and go to the brackets phase anyway, knockout stage. But can you imagine if USA basketball had lost? Nobody would care. Oh, we're still going to the bracket, but nobody cares about that. We're going to sit here, we're going to dwell on that loss, and we're going to pick it apart and blame people and then talk about who's selfish and all of that. But the dynamic with soccer is, because you're the underdog, because you're not expected to, because you're kind of on the outside looking in as far as the head honchos in the sport, the fact that you're advancing in group play supersedes your loss to Germany. Now, with that being said, Mark, and I'll get your take, because you watched the game. You were at B-Dubs. So I get the feeling, again, I've got my bachelor's, not my master's or my PhD, but I could tell watching that game that it wasn't going to end up well for the U.S., even though it was tied, because, again, you don't have to be the brightest star in the sky to understand that if the team is possessing the ball quite a few minutes near your goal, at some point the odds favor them getting one in. And it seems like, for the most part, that Germany always had the ball near U.S. territory, and very rarely did the U.S. have opportunities near the German goal. And so, the simple law of averages and odds tell you at some point Germany is going to score. And so that does have to do with some of the issues. And I'll tell you this, and I want to get your take on it. Even though I'm not a huge soccer fan, I still felt like I understand why Germany is really good and why the U.S. is kind of like a notch below. Even though the score was 0-0 for the most part, you could just kind of tell one team was they looked better than the other one. And I thought that was pretty neat to be able to dissect that, even though the score didn't necessarily reflect it.
I know people make fun of me for making basketball references, but it looked like what we just saw in the NBA Finals, a well-oiled machine versus a team scrambling around. Miami was trying their best to scramble around and keep up with San Antonio. It didn't work out too well for them, but the U.S. was scrambling around while Germany's trying, it doesn't look like they were putting out too much extra effort.
No.
It was just, this is what we do. We're 60-some% possession in the game, and we're going to be right around your goal, and we're going to put so much pressure on you. And a great goalkeeper, Tim Howard, did an incredible job last night or yesterday, and he made one really good save. Their goal came off of a really good save. He lays out and knocks the ball down, happens to knock it to one of the best players in the world, their best player, and Mueller, however you pronounce it, and he just drills one by him as he's diving back the other direction. It's sort of a rough way for the U.S. to give that goal up when they were playing such good defense, and then they really played. They handled the ball pretty well. Their dribbling and ball handling was pretty good. Their passing was on point.
You speak it. Preach.
And then the U.S. had a chance toward the end to score. You could tell that they really didn't want to kiss their sister. They wanted to. No, I guess tying is kissing your sister, isn't it? But they would rather kiss their sister than just lose outright. So let's go with that. You ever heard that? Tie is like kissing your sister.
Yeah. We're in Arkansas. That just tops it all.
Yeah, I was gonna say they didn't want a West Virginia their way in. They wanted to win or at least tie and get in on their own merit rather than backing in after a loss. And I kind of respected the way that they wanted to score at the end of that game, where there for a minute it looked like Germany was just going to play keep away. They were just like, all right, we're content with 1-0. We don't want you to have another chance to score, but we're not going to try to score either. We'll just let this ride. And the U.S. really pushed to try to get that goal.
And I think it's really something because there's still some value in giving up goals at that point. So
Portugal's like score.
Yeah. So again, with the U.S. soccer team, it was fascinating to me the fact that I could discern the limitations. Because the Germany passing was like the San Antonio Spurs. It seemed like every time the U.S. had possession, it'd be like 2 kicks and be a turnover again. I'm just like, oh gosh, why can they keep the ball and pass it through 5 people and needle it through, and then we do like a simple kick and it gets intercepted? So hats off to them. But now you're in the knockout phase, and it's gonna have every win. If the U.S. can win in this knockout stage, it's gonna be like an earthquake. To get to the Elite 8 in the world, the Final 4 of the world, and then dare I say you get to the World Cup. I mean, it's just every victory is going to be earth-shattering if you're able to do that. But you're right, Mark. Belgium will not be an easy test, but we'll just have to see what happens.
I watched a little bit of the Belgium game, and they seem like sort of the same type of team, not near as good as Germany. So I don't see why the U.S. can't compete, at least. But I would love to see the U.S. at full strength. You got another dude. Who was it? Jermaine. I almost said Jermaine Jackson. Jermaine Jones.
Yeah. Bend it like Jermaine is what
apparently he broke his nose yesterday. Clint Dempsey already had a broken nose, and maybe they'll get back Josie Altidore, and hopefully the U.S. can be as close to full strength as possible going into this game. And then then you just go from there. You just played one of the best teams in the world. You played in the best pool in the world. You had a chance to tie Germany, one of the top 10, my team that I picked to win it all, and Portugal, who is another top 10 team in the world, has perhaps the best player in the world. They shouldn't be scared of anybody. They feel like they'll have a chance to compete with anyone.
Yeah, you mentioned Altidore. I mean, you look at, I'm not trying to get into it, but you look at your strikers. You need some more firepower. Clint Dempsey up top can't be the guy by himself. You'll give Jones some credit, but, I mean, they need another guy that can put the ball in the net, and that's what Altidore, that's his primary job. And so you'll give guys like Bradley credit, but, I've heard a lot of people critical of Michael Bradley. A lot of people expect more. I haven't watched him enough to say, oh, that's not the Michael Bradley I used to know. Yeah. I hadn't watched enough to say that. But you can kind of tell he's not doing some things well, and I guess he's expected to play a lot better for this team. I don't know. Maybe it's an inside job. He's like, you fired my dad. I'm going to show you guys. So maybe that's what it is.
See, I didn't even know that much. All I knew was that I watched him yesterday, and the talk about didn't they replace 2 other starters? Yeah. And they were saying that it was partially because of the Ronaldo goal against Portugal, or the Ronaldo assist against Portugal. That they replaced these other 2 starters. They put some defenders in. I thought it was funny. Like I've said for weeks, I don't know anything about soccer. Normally, don't care. I'll just be honest with you. But watching them last night or yesterday when they would pass it to him, there was one that they passed it to him, and you would think he would have just easily knocked it down. And they had somebody kind of in position, or maybe he could have shot it, but they were within 20 yards of the goal. If he stops that ball, there's a good chance that something good could happen for the U.S. And he just it just went right by him. It was just like everybody was like, "That's why people are mad at him because he hadn't been making the play." I don't know. Maybe it's a focus thing.
Like I said, apparently expectations were high for him. I mean, he's one of the few guys I think a lot of people have heard of. Probably didn't know a lot about him. He's got a Sports Center commercial, so I guess that makes some value with him. But his dad coached the World Cup team in 2006, and they fired him. 2010 coached the World Cup team, and then they fired him a year later or so. So maybe it's like, Pops, I'll show him for you.
I'll suck it up and we'll lose because Oh, Lord. All right. Well, there's a couple other things I want to hit real quickly. Tiger yesterday, 3 over, had 7 bogeys as he's just trying to work the rust out before they get to the next major. He's trying to work out the kinks, but apparently he's back and healthy a little earlier than people expected.
Yeah, Tiger trying to get tuned up for the British Open, or excuse me, the Open Championship.
Yeah,
that's what they like
stupid.
to call it. Yeah, but the thing with golf, what's kind of sad is that Tiger Woods has been. This whole year he hadn't played well. He hadn't played since March at all. And then leading up to that point, because of his injuries, he was terrible leading up to his March exit. But up until about a month ago or so, he was still the number 1 ranked player in the world. Like, he had just recently lost that ranking, and he hadn't even been playing. It just shows you that golf still doesn't have a dominant figure. Adam Scott, I guess technically he's the most consistent player, but he's not dominating, walking away from tournaments anytime soon. And Rory, a lot of these guys, nobody wants to take golf, and as long as that's the case, it's still there for Tiger to try to get healthy and make a comeback in his career. Nobody's put him out of the game yet, and so I think that's kind of neat to see.
Yeah, he's going to be back. I mean, he's got 14 majors, got to win 5 more if he wants to pass.
Well, I was going to say he's about to fall behind Jack in pace.
As far as pace?
Yeah, he was on pace his whole career.
He's still not
he's
behind him?
Yeah, he's still not behind his whole career. He's been ahead, but I think if he doesn't win the Open Championship, he'll officially fall behind him for the first time. So.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was dominant.
Well, that is dominant. That tells you how dominant he was when he could suck for 5 years. He'd still be right there ahead of pace. So, found out yesterday that Jadeveon Clowney claims he had a sports hernia last year, which caused him the issues that a lot of folks saw. I know a lot of people were really upset with him for what they supposed to be a lack of effort. But I'll be honest with you, if it were me and I were playing against double and triple teams every single time, or teams running away from me on purpose, or teams running right at me on purpose and double teaming me, I would have found it really hard, Weldon, to put out 100% effort every single time when it seemed like it's like you're being the decoy every play as a wide receiver. Okay, well but then they never throw it to me, that type of thing. Jadeveon Clowney sort of. He was the decoy last year, and apparently now he's coming out and saying he had an injury.
Yeah, his evaluation, you really had to sort through a lot of things, because when you watch him initially, this past year, you did get a bad taste, but then you start to look more at it. You do look at some of the double teams he faced. You look at him still showing the ability to do things, and I think this is just a big rookie year for him, because I think he's not going to be double teamed as much. If he is who we think he is, he's going to be able to show it. And so, it's one of those things. I'll admit I was back and forth on it. He kind of left a bad taste in my mouth just from an effort standpoint. But he did make the plays when necessary. He did see more attention than I think a lot of people give him credit for. Still it doesn't feel good. I get that. Why am I even out here? I'm getting triple teamed. Everybody's running away from me. I still would like to see chasing down the backside, things like that. But overall, when you evaluate him against the other players and their weaknesses, I think it was fine that he went number 1. I think he'll be a great NFL player.
And finally, before we get out of here, we just got a few minutes left. We want to spend some time with Razorback Sports. Got some hog talk to get to, some recruiting news. Obviously, Arkansas trying to move through the summer schedule and get some recruits while they can, get in on some more recruits as well. The running back is already helping. We talked earlier on about trying to find the kid's name who was running back.
The Dallas kid?
The kid out of Dallas.
Yeah.
And I'm trying
Raleigh Williams, I think is his name.
Raleigh Williams.
Yeah, Raleigh Williams, yeah.
He's giving Arkansas a look. There's some big names that are giving Arkansas looks right now. But more importantly, and we'll get to those here in just a minute, I think it's really cool what Brett Bielema does for walk-ons. Knowing, the soft spot he's got in his heart for walk-ons who, he every year it seems, and he's done it in his 2 years at Arkansas, he's given an opportunity for walk-ons to earn scholarships. And defensive end Jake Hall and fullback Tyler Colquitt, both Arkansas players from the state of Arkansas, high school players from the state of Arkansas, walked on to the University of Arkansas. They've earned their way to a scholarship. I just think that's a really cool gesture, not only to the state of Arkansas, but to the players who come on and walk on, their preferred walk-ons and that type of thing, that if you work hard and you put the team first and you give this effort, we're going to reward that effort and we're going to give you a shot to have a scholarship.
Yeah, I mean, and really, that's what they should. That's what more coaches should do, especially if a guy is helping your football team. Now, I understand walk-ons. Obviously, you may say they're a little bit behind as far as talent. You want to give your scholarships to the best players you can, but if it's at all feasible, I think you owe these guys a scholarship. If they're going to come in, bust their behind, contribute to your football team, their value. You if a guy's just a walk-on who's at the end of the bench and he doesn't even help you in practice, then if a guy is really, man, he's a good scout team player. Man, he's really helping us out. But he's a walk-on, so I don't have to pay him. I'm getting free labor. If it's like that. If it's at all feasible, I think the right thing to do is to give that guy a scholarship. Again, it's not always feasible, but when it is, I think you do need that acknowledgement.
I think it'll help build depth. It'll help with relationships with high school coaches in Arkansas. These guys were from Springdale Harbor, I think, so that's a big school in Arkansas. And Shiloh, it's PA.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing.
Kelly, yeah.
He's going after some of the big, well-respected schools in the state. He's trying to improve that relationship with those people. We got to understand, you go back to Bobby Petrino, and it seemed like a lot of times he could have cared less about some of the better schools and better players in the state of Arkansas. Michael Dyer, I know he said all these things, but they didn't seem to put out any effort to get him. Alty Tenpenny, he's going to go to Alabama. Don't worry about it. Houston Nutt, for all his talk about the fence, he got some really good players from the state, but he let some really good ones slip away as well. So I like what Brett Bielema is doing to sort of solidify the state of Arkansas and get some of these guys in and give them an opportunity.
So what you're saying is, if you're a Dover walk-on, you ain't getting no scholarship. If you're a walk-on from,
if he thinks it can improve a pipeline through the state by helping your school, you go to Warren or someplace like that where there's always some players. Yeah. He's gonna make something happen for you.
So again, if you're a Dover walk-on,
yes,
I need to quit.
You're just always on Dover, man.
I
just don't say it. I just don't say it out loud in front of everybody. Brett Bielema doing a good job. Hey, Dover's about to hire a girls basketball coach. I saw that. I made the mention the other day about the Clarksville Junior High football coaches. Lance Fetters steps up from assistant to head coach. Shane Jackson, his new defensive coordinator. Eli Craner is excited about what he's got going over there at Clarksville. And then Hector, boys basketball coach, Cody Vaught left. Now they've got a guy by the name that is just completely leaving me right now. He's from Waldron. He's completely leaving me right now. What in the world is going wrong with me? I didn't write it down because I know the guy. But Hector has hired a new basketball coach, and I keep getting the wrong name in my head when I'm trying to think of it.
You'll get it.
It's World Cup amnesia.
Yeah, it's too much soccer in my brain is what it is. It is completely ruining me. But Hector has found a new basketball coach, new high school boys basketball coach.
What happened to the Dover girls coach? Why did they have to make a move?
I think, where did he go? He left.
He left someplace else. I was going to say, that's the sport where...
he was really good. He was he got a lot of votes. It's Irvin Fairfield, I think is his name.
Yeah.
And he got a lot of votes for for Coach of the Year. Noah Shagnon, Hector's coach. But he got a lot of votes for in the Brightest Stars Banquet for Coach of the Year. So he was kind of a sought after guy.
I was about to say, Dover, that's your sport there. That's women's basketball. That's where you butter your bread at Dover.
Yeah.
Hope they keep that going.
All right. Well, all right. You got anything else from the world of sports? You got Federer or Nadal winning Wimbledon. Let's be a well-rounded sports show here today.
No, well, look.
Or somebody else.
Look, Federer is the grass man, but Nadal's the best player in the world. So even though Federer loves the grass, I'm still going Rafa Nadal. Got to give the SEC and the Vanderbilt Commodores some credit for the national championship in baseball. You know what I loved about it, Mark, is we whooped the ACC to do it. They got us in football for the national title. We came back and got them in baseball.
Bounce back. Well, right. Arkansas lost to the team who got second place in the country and put up a good fight in doing so. So Jeff Long, we mentioned on Wednesday that Jeff Long is coaching the national team, and Trey Killian. What did I say, Jeff Long?
He used to coach something, didn't he?
Dave Van Horn. Because although Jeff Long is a great man, he is not a coach. But Dave Van Horn, you see my brain, it's soccer. Too much soccer in the brain is screwing me up. Dave Van Horn coaching the national team. They got a good performance out of Trey Killian and a win. I guess it was yesterday or Wednesday. So he's doing good things. Razorback baseball in good hands. Go check out those pictures of the new baseball facility. It's freaking incredible.
You got them up? Or?
I don't have them. No, ArkansasRazorbacks.com has them. I may have to go grab them. That's a really, really nice facility.
And
really
then
nice.
Basketball's coming along, that facility, and we know that's a big one with this athletic program. Get that basketball facility up. Looks like it's coming along.
Definitely. Djokovic, he's going to win Wimbledon. Just calling it now.
Oh, he's going with the Joker.
And then, I don't know anything. I just see that he's ranked number 1. And then finally, let me see. There was something else that I just wanted to hit real quick. The Suarez, the biting dude, suspended for like 4 months or something like that. 9 games.
His club team.
Even the guy who he bit said that was excessive.
Yeah,
I think it's kind of crazy that you don't. I think it's perfect. You don't let people bite people. We're adults.
Yeah, the discussion was, well, should this affect his club teams? Obviously, FIFA sanctions all of it. And I said, yeah. I mean, it was
keep you from doing stupid crap like that.
He did it in a FIFA event. FIFA sanctions not only the international events, but they also sanction the club events, in Europe. And so he plays in that too. Sure, like you said, don't be biting people.
Should go without saying, shouldn't it?
Yeah,
we don't bite.
Was this kindergarten? I know.
Seriously, I don't know what the heck that dude's thinking. He said these things happen. He said these things happen. He wanted to flop, so he's like, oh, I'm gonna bite this dude. When he throws an elbow at me, I'm gonna flop like I got
then he
shot.
act like he got hurt.
He's like, oh, my teeth. Well, yeah, you should have your teeth down your throat right now, you big jerk. Bite me, I'd turn around and get myself a red card stomping on your nads. That's what I'd be doing.
He's probably like, well, he put his shoulder in my teeth. That's what
problem. Exactly.
Shame on him.
Except for the video that shows me jumping up on him like a crazy person, biting his shoulder.
He's a repeat biter, too. I think that was part of it. He's
a repeat offender, repeat biter. All right, well, World Cup, there'll be plenty more of that in the conversation where this came from. We'll be back on Monday to talk more about that. NBA, man, it's going to be closing down, but we've got some free agent talk. Maybe we'll have some sort of news. Hopefully, I guess Monday is the date that the Big Three have to have opted out by. So they'll either have to be locked into their contract, or Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh will join LeBron James in opting out of their contracts.
And one other thing as we close up shop here Monday, or maybe sometime we got to get to it, hearing a lot of talk about people discussing the stadium experience at Razorback Stadium. I want to see what you think. I know you go to games and everybody likes to talk about how that TV versus home and all that, so maybe we can get into that.
Yeah, home wins. But I did see that there was some legislation passed about selling alcohol, beer and wine and those types of things in the club seats. The indoor club that, you have a separate entrance, that type of thing. It's kind of like a private club. And so they're going to be selling alcohol. That's a big topic of conversation. You got schools like West Virginia who they're selling beer in their facility, like in the actual stadium, so to everybody. So, and they say that it limits binge drinking. It takes down issues that people have in the facility. I don't know why you would pay $7-8 for one drink when people have been smuggling stuff in for hundreds of years.
In West Virginia, I didn't even think they had alcohol in West Virginia.
They sell moonshine. You jump up in there and you get this mason jar.
Get your mason jar in West Virginia.
Oh Lord, that's two digs at West Virginia. I was gonna say we're in Arkansas, so we get to crack on West Virginia here every once in a while. It's kind of like the I won't go there. We'll move on. All right, we've run out of time for today. We'll be back on Monday at 11 o'clock with more Sports Blitz for Weldon and Maddie and old Dave. I'm Mark saying so long. We'll see you on Monday.